Today, Dr. Paul Gavoni, Paulie Gloves, is going to be joining us to speak about behaviors. He's an expert in human performance, coaching, and organizational leadership and has worked in education and human services for 20 years. He served in a variety of positions, including COO, leadership director, assistant principal, school turnaround manager, clinical coordinator, therapist, behavior analyst, and adjunct professor. Beyond his direct work with students in poverty and those suffering from behavioral and mental health issues, he specializes in providing administrative teams, teachers, and staff with training, coaching, and consultation with analyzing and developing behavior and performance management systems to positively impact key performance indicators. As a behavior scientist, Dr. Gavani is passionate about applying organizational behavior management, OBM strategies, to establish positive environments that engage and bring out the best in people so they can bring out the best in the children that they serve or in the employees. Former fighter and Golden Gloves heavyweight coaching. He uses that science of human behavior to train fighters. He's also a Wall Street Journal and New York Times best-selling author. His specialty in human performance coaching and organizational leadership has had him working across education, human services, and sports for these 2 decades. I'm so glad to have him here. He's a board member of the World Behavior Analysis Day Alliance. He's known for his authenticity and practical approaches. It's a real treat to have him today on our podcast. He hosts several podcasts and is a sought out speaker. So, welcome, Paulie. We appreciate you being here today. For our podcast disclaimer, please visit the episode description. Thanks for coming back to What the Heck is Happening in HR. This morning we've got Dr. Gavoni speaking with us. He has his ED doctorate and he's a BCBA doctorate, which we will chat more about. Welcome, Dr. Gavoni.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I always love talking shop, so I appreciate it.
Well, this could go on for hours, I'm sure, because I was just fascinated with your recent book, but not everybody's familiar with you. Could you share a bit of your background?
Well, in brief, I actually started off in social work. Got a bachelor's and master's in social work. Somebody said, "Go take this class around the corner and get paid $50 an hour if you get it." And I was broke, and I said, "Okay." And I walked in the classroom, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, this is what I always thought how the world worked," and it was just an eye opener for me. And so I really value helping people, and I learned that this is the science of helping people, and started working in school districts, doing behavior analysis. And I don't think I was very good at it at first, working with special needs populations. And I'd learned that there was also the application of the science of human behavior analysis to organizations called organizational behavior management. And I learned a lot about that, felt passionate about it, and I was able to use that science to turn around failing schools, turn around failing organizations. I actually use the science as well, individually, actually organizational behavior management as well, to turn around failing gyms and failing fighters. I have local mixed martial arts champions, state, national, and even world champions. So it's been really fun doing it, and I've taken all of that, my experiences and the mistakes I've made, and I certainly have made a lot of mistakes, and put them into books and articles. I've written a couple hundred articles that are available on LinkedIn or across the internet. I've now written 7 books, and of course, the latest one that you're talking about, Positional Authority Ain't Leadership, Behavior Science for Navigating Bullshit, Optimizing Performance, and Avoiding Ass Clownery. So that was a real fun one.
And it was fun to read, and I really felt you were in my head a couple times. I speak a lot about kind of management, status abuse, and leadership as a whole, and behavior, and making sure we're not using the sandwich method when we're giving feedback to people. I'd really like to talk about the book since I finished it, and it's pretty new. It just came out a couple weeks ago. So, the book is Positional Authority Ain't Leadership, is the initial title. And a couple things in there. You mentioned that behavior analysis is the bedrock into understanding and enhancing human behavior to help produce valued outcomes. Talk to me about that relating to leadership and specifically, I guess, your DNA of leadership.
Yeah, it's so there's a lot of leadership research out there. It's stuff that I espouse to. I love it, like servant leadership. I think it's great. Transformational leadership, authentic leadership, goal path theory. There's a lot of theories out there. But I make the analogy that these are like different paths to the same goal, right? Different approaches to going somewhere. What maybe resonates with your own values. But the all results require behavior, and there's a real science to behavior. And so I look at the behavior analysis as that science, and this is more like the vehicle that allows you to drive these paths. So the more you understand behavior, the principles of behavior, the more you can reflect on your behavior, the more you can arrange the environment in a way that gets the best out of people so they can achieve results. Unfortunately, people don't understand behaviors. And a lot of people who have positional authority are not engaging in what I would argue are leadership behaviors. In the book, I discuss four different hats of leadership: leading, training, coaching, and managing. And leading being, in our world, we call a motivating operation. We might just say, hey, if your team's not feeling good or an individual person's not feeling great, right? We might need to inspire them. We got to put on a leading hat. And I might turn my hat to the side, say that, hey, if they don't have the knowledge and skills to, move towards whatever inspired goal that you set with them, that you worked out with them, we got to make sure we have on the training hat, whether we're directly training them or we've created systems, right, in our organizations that ensures that they are provided the knowledge and skills. But training doesn't stick without coaching. Training is about skill acquisition. Coaching is about supporting the generalization of learned skills into natural environment. Coaching is about helping people be better observers of their behavior and the impact of their behavior on valued outcomes. And so it shifts from like telling people to asking them, right? Helping them to become better observers of their behavior and the impact of it. And the final piece is the managing hat, and that's about maintenance. In our field, we call it maintenance, but it's really about leveraging the contingencies of existing systems to make sure people continue behaving after you get them moving in the right direction. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. One of the items that really overlays with that is, and something I've done several podcasts on as well, is value based leadership. And you talk about the values in there. And my question for you is, and you talk about nurture and nature. Can we nurture to kindness? Can those values really happen?
Oh, listen. Values are a behavior. If I ask you what do you value, you say kindness. Okay, well, describe that to me, right? Values are a way of being and doing. And so I think that in the end, when we develop systems, systems need to be driven by values. So we have to unpack what those values are, then we have to define them behaviorally. Again, if taking kindness as an example, we value that, or collaboration. What does that mean? What does that look like for the individual to collaborate? What's it look at the team level? What do the leaders need to do to create that environment that ensures collaboration is going? Because if it's really a value, it would be something we measure, right?
Mhm.
We say we value people in there, but unfortunately, a lot of organizations they have they're measuring how people feel about things. We say we value it, but it's at the end of the year, and I say that's akin to an autopsy, right? It's too late to do something about that. I think we need to involve stakeholders and check in with them regularly to make sure that things are moving in the right direction, in the right way as they perceive it.
Right, especially for where the organization's headed. Performance reviews just drive me crazy. They are a rear view mirror. And now I'm talking to you a year later to tell you about
Hmm.
something that I've taken a note about, which we've moved on from.
That's right.
So I just really prefer looking through that windshield, saying, where am I going? How is it headed? What is it? What is it you need? What is it the organization needs to provide for you so that we can actually be successful together on this whole thing?
Yeah, and I think that's where I agree with you 100% on that. An organization with a good system has identified a number of leading and lagging indicators, so they know where they are in the moment. They know where they're going. They can look back and see if they've gotten where they should be within in the right amount of time, in the right way, and using that data to make adjustments. But when you don't have that kind of data, it's like a GPS coming on, and you're in an area that you don't even know where you're at, right? And it's flashing on like every 5 minutes. You're getting lost constantly, right? You need
Mhm.
that kind of feedback to guide your direction, and to use it not to punish people, but to coach them, to reinforce them, to keep them, to maintain their behavior, to keep it going in the right direction. And a lot
Mhm.
of organizations don't have that stuff. The data's too far behind.
Yeah. I loved your GPS examples you had in the book. Two things it reminded me. One time I was in Switzerland and I forgot to change the language on the GPS, and I really had no idea where I was going because I did not speak the language that was coming off that GPS. But the other piece is how often we still turn it on, even though we know where we're going.
Yeah. That's the whole piece about prompt dependency, right? And,
Hmm.
there could be people who are very well meaning, leaders who are well meaning and telling people what to do a lot. But, I think great leaders create more leaders around them, right? And, helping people to better assess, problem solve, make decisions, take actions in our absence. If you don't do that, things can get overwhelming, right? We want to empower people around us to be able to do these things. And too often, again, if maybe a leader has really good content knowledge or somebody with positional authority has good content knowledge, but we know we need to help other people become that kind of expert, or at least approach that so people can, be effective in the absence of the leader.
Hmm. And so many times on authentic leadership, and you've mentioned it in the book, I've seen where supervisors, managers, even higher ups will do the job, not be the job, and not bring themselves to it and their own array of talents that they have, and instead they're following something that they've seen that maybe wasn't so good.
Yeah, I think that number one, if that's not, yeah, that's not being a leader at all. If you're going out there and doing the job yourself, unless you're getting out there and you're just rolling up your hands to model for somebody, because there's lots of issues going on in an organization. So like you've got to be, if you're in an organizational leadership position, or you're managing a team, I mean, you should get in there and roll up your sleeves sometimes, because I think you can build relationships with people and find out for yourself what's going on. So I'm not saying that's not important. It certainly is. But we really have to foster an environment where people can perform independently, and we have to lead and manage other people, right? We got to make sure that they're performing well, because this is how we accelerate achievement outcomes. And of course, the larger the organization is, the more things are moving away from the values and approaches of that leader. So this is why you have to have good systems in place that get behavior going in the right direction, keep it going in the right direction, in the right way, right? In ways that are aligned with values. And you've got to have measurement, you have to have feedback for that. And we have to make sure that behavior, pivotal behavior, keep value added behavior is getting in touch with positive reinforcement.
You've been doing a lot of work in the school districts. Talk to me a little bit about that and what you're seeing, and especially, I guess, management wise, but also with the schools, what you're seeing post pandemic. We're 3 years from when it happened.
Schools are struggling. They've been struggling for a long time. I have actually a podcast called the Crisis in Education podcast. And I think what the pandemic did was just kind of expose a bunch of the issues that were already there. And of course, it exacerbated them. There are a lot of things that need to change in education. I'm going to go right up to like even teacher preparation program. A lot of our teachers are being dropped into the classroom unprepared to meet the demands. It's
Hmm.
like me dropping my fighter into the cage of the ring, expecting that they're going to be able to fight successfully. And while they're taking a beating, I'm telling them all the things that they need to do more or less or differently. I'm evaluating them, and they're not being successful. Too many of them are not being successful. I think it's about 44% on average leave the field inside of 5 years. And certainly
Wow.
they're leaving after they've not been successful, which means our students, our children are being exposed a lot of times to poor education. It's not, man, these are good people. They want to be successful. Teaching is complex. I don't know what is more important than teaching, right? I mean, teachers are the backbone of our country. If we're going to
Hmm.
reduce poverty and reduce welfare and incarceration, improve quality of life, and et cetera, teachers. But we need to respect them more. We need to provide them the support they need. Most are leaving the field for three key reasons. There's a number of one, but three key reasons. They feel perceived lack of support by administration. They feel that they're not unprepared for the job and behavior challenges, right? And yet, only one in three universities, the last I looked, actually provided training in some sort of classroom management. So there's the issue there, but there's also the issue at leadership. One person, the school leader, can impact student achievement by up to 34%. So I think this is a pivotal position. This is why books like Positional Authority and Leadership, these guys are just getting theory, right? And they're not even getting good theory too often. I've taught in those higher ed programs, and thankfully I was able to infuse some organizational behavior management, some real science into there.
Hmm.
But it's just too much theory, and that doesn't generalize without good coaching. And which means that the coach needs to understand how to get the best out of the school leader, right? And this is why the science of human behavior should be infused throughout the whole process.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so interesting to hear you mix organizations, mix the education system and fighting all, all in your examples. I love the fact that behavior is behavior and it shows up everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. I've been able to leverage the science, and there are so many more brilliant behavior analysts than I am. I just am consistent with it. I make it more practical and understandable for people to use, but the
Hmm.
principles are all the same, whether it's working with a fighter, with a teacher, with a student, whether you're zoomed in and looking at the molecular level of behavior change, or you're zooming out and looking at it from a molar perspective, we still have to consider the principles of human behavior.
Wow. Well, we will certainly consider them as we read Positional Authority Ain't Leadership by Dr. Paulie Gavoni. So we really appreciate you being with us today, and we look forward to having you back sometime.
Thanks for having me on. It's been an honor.